and as he ran his fingers over his tired chin, he noticed that his stubble was dangerously approaching beard territory. He should probably smarten up before returning to work, but it wasn't going to happen. These small acts of defiance made him feel like a little bit less of a bitch. He pulled yesterday's shirt over his head and grabbed his keys off the bedside table. Adrian kept the car running and beeped the horn. He saw the neighbour's curtains twitching and decided to beep again, making sure Andrea's neighbours knew that she hadn't always been the princess she was now. She had slummed it once, at least. A 10-minute drive, and yet it was like being in another world. Just 3 digits on the postcode felt like entering another country, a cleaner, happier country. Not that the lower end of the city was a ghetto or anything. This Regency period neighbourhood stood high above Exeter city centre, past the prison and the red light district, near the university. All the front gardens were vibrant and blooming, the front doors all freshly painted, and the lawns mown. Each house had a clear vista of the little people down below. It even seemed sunnier here. The light bounced off the grand white house. The sun was not diffused by the endless grey terraces that surrounded the tiny plot his modest home occupied on the wrong side of town. Tom walked towards the car, with his shoulders hunched over, still uncomfortable in his ever-growing frame. He was just a kid, and yet he was only 3 years younger than Adrian was when he got Andrea pregnant. And now that Tom was an adolescent, Adrian couldn't help but compare himself to him. He reminded Adrian of himself, except Tom didn't have the same hang-ups. At least Adrian hoped he didn't. They say the firstborn child always looks most like the father, in order to help the bonding process, but it hadn't helped much in Adrian's case. If anything, it just made him a little sad. Andrea was standing in the doorway scowling at Adrian, dressed in her power suit. Anyone would think she was a lawyer or something. But no, she worked as a personal shopper in a high-end department store. Hardly the end of the world if she took the day off. Adrian had fought long and hard for access to Tom, and he could not say no to having him, because he knew she would use it against him. That's just who she was. She looked good, though. She always had looked good, and she probably always would. He reluctantly settled his eyes on the curves of her finely toned body. It was as though she had been sewn into her outfit. There wasn't a wrinkle or a pull in the perfectly tailored ensemble. Her thick black hair was pulled back into a silky bun, and the brightness of the diamond studs in her ears flashed against her milk chocolate skin. People often thought Andrea was Indian or Latin American, due to her exotic skin tone, but she was, in fact, half English and half Irish. Adrian looked at her full red lips and looked away before she caught him. "I'll pick him up later on," she said, before switching tones. "Love you, baby." "Bye, Mum." Tom got in, and Adrian pulled away. The familiar, awkward silence filled the car. Adrian would have liked to attribute this phenomenon to Tom being a teenager, but the truth was, it had always been this way between them. Every other weekend for the last 7 years. Andrea had tried to shut him out completely, underestimating how motivated Adrian would be about this particular subject. He had fallen in love with Tom from the moment he had first seen him. He had tried his hardest to provide for Andrea, but nothing he ever did was enough. Before Tom even turned 2, Andrea had remarried, and she and her new partner had tried to block any kind of access for Adrian. He had finally managed to get regular visitation when Tom was 6, but by then, the damage was already done. Tom and Adrian's relationship had been strained ever since. "So how come your school's shut? Do you know?" "Yeah, my mate Alex texted me," Tom said excitedly. "His dad's a teacher there. They found Mr. Stone hanging in the atrium. Killed himself. Like right in the middle of it." "Is that a surprise?"